Hello everybody, we're going to be talking about the GP series of silencers today. That's general purpose. We're going to be walking through the install of these silencers. We have the GP5 and the GP7 in front of us. The GP5 is a 5.56 millimeter or 22 caliber silencer. These are both fully welded, 17.4 stainless steel and H900 heat treated and Cerakoted. The GP5 is, I believe, something like 12 and a half ounces, something like that. And the GP7 is around, I think it's around 15 ounces. These cans are great for people that are seeking an affordable silencer that you can apply to a bunch of different calibers. The GP7, of course, being a 7.62 or 30 caliber silencer, means that you're going to be able to step it down on 22 caliber projectiles and things like that. This is how the products come in the box. So we have the box, the manual, and then also a shim set with a pin. The silencers feature a wrench geometry in the rear with a drilled hole for pinning and welding. What that's going to do is, if you want to run a traditional stock on your firearm, then you're going to be able to pin and weld the barrel to the 16-inch legal minimum that the ATF requires. Otherwise, if you're shorter than 16 inches, it'll be determined in SBR, short barrel rifle. So for the GP7, you need a minimum barrel length of 9.5 inches or longer to pin to, and for the GP5 you need a minimum barrel length of 10.5 inches or longer to pin to, and those will give you your 16-inch or longer lengths. Another feature of the GP5 and 7 is that it does have a wrench geometry on the front cap with an integrated low-profile flash hider. What this allows is so that if you want to put it under a silencer rail, like the new Griffin Armament SR rigid rails, our suppressor ready rails, then you can do that. You can actually tuck it neatly under the handguard, and you can still have a provision to get it on and off of the firearm. So that's kind of cool also. So without further ado, I'm going to get into prepping your firearm for the install. I've got a Griffin Mark 1 here with a 10.5 inch rail, and this is our 11.5, so this would be actually something that you could pin the GP5 to if you wanted to for that 16-inch overall length. And we're going to just start by removing the muzzle device. And then we have shims under here from timing this muzzle device out, so we're just going to pull all those shims off. And then you're going to want to take a brass brush, which is the preferable material to use for the brush. If you use stainless steel, you could damage the threads, and if you use nylon, usually it won't break up the carbon deposits, so brass is really the preferred material for the brush. So you're just going to go around and kind of aggressively brush the threads and the muzzle crown and make sure that the threads are nice and clean. That's going to do a couple things for you. One, it's going to allow the threads on your silencer to not be potentially damaged. Number two, it will give the best alignment of the suppressor to the barrel. So after you've done that, if you're not concerned with pinning and welding, let's say for instance you're running a brace on your firearm and you don't care to pin and weld, then you don't need to use the shims. You don't need to time that drilled hole into the position to pin and weld it, so the shims are actually not needed if you're looking to just install it. We do not recommend though that you only hand install it. If you do that and you shoot the firearm and you heat it up, then your thread will break loose and your silencer will be slightly wobbly on the end of your firearm, and then you'll get baffle strikes almost for sure. So what we recommend is, even if you're not pinning and welding it, if you're just installing it like this, still come in there with a torque wrench and make sure that you're getting torque on the muzzle device, and we recommend 35 inches of foot-pounds of torque for a half-inch thread like the GP5, and 45 foot-pounds of torque for the 5/8 thread as on the GP7. So now you're good to go. You can shoot the silencer because you properly torqued it on. One last thing that you could check that we suggest you do is suppressor alignment, and there's another video on that you can look at. We can put that in the detailed description below, but suppressor alignment check rods, you can kind of throw down the bore of your silencer, flush it up with the end of the silencer, and then you can see if your silencer is touching that rod to see if you have clearance or not. But you're gonna have a 99.99% probability of success if you install your Griffin silencer on a Griffin firearm, because we have suppressor quality barrels and threads, both in the pistol formats that we sell and the rifles. But any other gun out there, I would definitely check it out. There's varying degrees of quality control with different manufacturers, and surplus firearms and stuff like that, older stuff that a lot of people are putting suppressors on, which is really cool. Definitely check out the silencer alignment before you shoot it. So that is kind of the easy installation. I'm gonna walk you through next the install if you're intending on pinning and welding the silencer. Okay, so now I'm going to go into installing one of the GP silencers with the shims and the pin. We're not going to show you the pinning and welding procedure here on video, but if you have a local gunsmith, a lot of gunsmiths offer this service. It's not too expensive, so they can actually do this stuff for you, which I would recommend if you're going to be doing this. But just to show you kind of how it works, the shims that we provide you are two different thicknesses. So there's a couple 10,000ths thick shims in there that are very hard, they don't really bend. And then there are some 2,000ths thick shims that are very floppy and very bendy. And what that's going to do is it's going to provide you with a different gradient when you're timing the silencer. So if you install the 2,000ths thick shims, that's going to allow you to clock, I believe it's 1 o'clock position roughly, and the 10,000ths, which is 5 times thicker, is going to then allow you to clock it 5 o'clock positions in one time. So basically what you have to do is you have to just add and remove shims, kind of going back and forth and calculating that. And it does take a little bit of time because you'll throw some shims on there. You'll notice where the drilled hole is in relation to the barrel. And basically what you want to do is you want to keep adding shims until that hole clocks down to the 6 o'clock position on the barrel, or the bottom of the barrel. That's a universal truth in the firearms industry. Anyone that's selling barrels that are pinnable, they're going to have a little slot and track in the bottom of the barrel. We'll actually show you that, what that looks like. And what that is for is so that when you have your drilled hole on the GP series clocked into the 6 o'clock, that hole in the silencer is going to align with the slot in the barrel, and that's going to give you the ability to install the pin in there, weld it so that it can't come loose anymore. And then you meet the definition for the ATF's requirement of a pin and weld. Okay, so right now I put a couple shims on there and I'm staring at the drilled hole. It's at the 12 o'clock. So what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to install a thick shim and probably a thin shim too, but that's going to move the o'clock position, closer to where I want it to be. And this is just kind of trial and error with installing it and taking it off and adding or removing shims as necessary to achieve the proper alignment. And you're not going to be able to see what that is by hand pressure, because once you start adding torque to get to your proper torque value, which is not as necessary when you're pinning and welding, but I still recommend it, you're going to see that your position is changing. So right now my hole is probably at the 7 o'clock, so I need to move it 2 more o'clock positions. And so I'll just keep adding shims. I'll add a few more shims. And like I said, if you're not very comfortable with doing this, don't worry about it, because gunsmiths all over the place offer this service. But this is just an insight into what this looks like, because once you're finished with clocking it, it still obviously has to be pinned and welded. So now if I added the appropriate torque, now what you'd see is that the hole is at the 6 o'clock of the firearm, the bottom of the barrel, and that hole is going to be lined up then with the slot in the barrel. And so now you would say, hey, Mr. Gunsmith, thank you very much for helping me out. I need this pinned and welded, and they would pin and weld it for you for a nominal fee, and now you'd have a rifle that is suppressed, that is not a short-barreled rifle, that has a stock on it because you meet the 16-inch overall length. So that is basically the rundown on the GP series silencers. Hope you enjoyed this video, And if you guys have any questions about it, feel free to hit us up at customer service. And thank you very much for watching.